back again because I've just done adrenal fatigue and grief, but I forgot to save it to my phone, and I need it for Mia in case you haven't seen the first time round, and I also need to save it to my IGTV. I've got a frog in my throat because I'm suffering with a cold at the moment, and I think I've managed to get rid of it. So apologies if you've already watched this once. I'm going to go over the same old stuff. But for those of you that haven't seen it already, I'm talking about adrenal fatigue and grief. Now, just to sort of clarify, obviously, what adrenal fatigue is, if you've not watched any of my previous IGTVs, and also just to go over the basics of grief. Adrenal fatigue is when you have got to such a degree that your adrenal glands are no longer pumping out cortisol or adrenaline. They've become so tired and fatigued that they are not able to pump out the things that we need to motivate us. Now, cortisol, in and of itself, is very positive for us. Excuse me, this is cold. Excuse me, this is awful. Cortisol is anti-inflammatory. It also helps us regulate our blood sugar levels. It's actually an incredibly important thing for us to have in our bodies. However, most of us have way too much cortisol in our bodies because we're constantly stressed. And whether that's from an environmental stressor, so you're cold or you're hot, you're not sleeping enough, whether it's nutritional stress, you're not eating the right kind of foods, or you're eating too many of the wrong kind of foods. It can be stress from, tight deadlines. It can be stress from running your own business and you're constantly thinking about it and you never give yourself any time off to let your brain rest. Hi, Bridget, I'm doing it again. I forgot to save it, and I need this for Mia, who actually specifically requested this, and she may not catch my live in the next 24 hours. I'm doing it all over again, so hello. So yeah, that's why, cortisol is incredibly important for us. However, when we are under constant threat, whether it's imagined, whatever that threat might be, it might even just be looking at your bank statement and you get that feeling before you open it, or you're at the cash point and you're thinking, oh, please, or you've just bought your shopping and you're thinking, please don't let my card be declined. That's all stress. While you're thinking that, your adrenal glands are going with cortisol and adrenaline. And when you have bad news, you get that feeling, that really heavy feeling, and you feel that spike through your body. That's adrenaline and cortisol being pumped through. And it's the chronic low to mid-level of stress that we're dealing with on a daily basis that eventually our adrenal glands say, I've got nothing left. I'm exhausted. And you'll know adrenal fatigue. You've got adrenal fatigue if, for instance, you've slept 9 or 10 hours and you wake up and you're still exhausted. Or actually, this also happens that you might be exhausted all through the day, and then about 9 o'clock at night, you go bing, and it's all of a sudden, what's happened? I'm awake and I'm alive. That is also a sign of adrenal fatigue. But with adrenal fatigue, you are really struggling. Hormonally, you're struggling. If you're going through the menopause, I'm not going to go into menopause in any great detail because I've done that on my Menopause Mondays, but you're going to be having a lot of hot flashes. You're going to be having, your hair might be falling out, or you might be getting hairy, male hair patterns. So you might be getting hairy face, hairy chest, hairy back. You might be getting acne. These are all signs of adrenal fatigue. Struggling with a cold here too. Feel better soon. Thank you, Bridget. So much of it around, isn't there? I need to be on a beach getting hot somewhere. So yeah, adrenal fatigue essentially is when your adrenals have worn themselves out. And there is no pill to fix it. There is no medication. It's lifestyle. Lifestyle probably got you into adrenal fatigue, and lifestyle will get you out of adrenal fatigue if you do the right things. Now, Mia asked me to chat about adrenal fatigue and grief. She lost her mum, and grief can lead to adrenal fatigue, particularly if it becomes complicated grief. So complicated grief is probably, if you've had it for you've experienced the loss, and 12 months down the line, you are still not being able to function on a normal everyday level because your thoughts are completely filled with the grief, the sadness, the loss, the pain, the anger, whatever it might be, that's when you need to go and get professional help. Definitely, you know, we are designed, we come from a long list of deceased people, sad as that is, and eventually we are all going to be adding to that list, and eventually, unfortunately, our loved ones, our children, God, spare the thought, are going to be part of that list. And because that's what happens, you know, we're born and we all die, and our bodies and our brains are incredibly well adept at getting through grief. I mean, grief, I know it's agony. It's horrible. There is not a word in my mind that I can describe grief succinctly enough. It's just, I don't know how, it's agonizing, and it just can completely end your life as you knew it. And I don't think life ever is quite the same when you've experienced serious grief. And that doesn't mean that there's less serious grief, but I think some losses have more of an impact than others. If, you know, if it's traumatic, if it's the loss of a child, or you know, your parent or a spouse, those tend to be the worst types of grief. I'm not belittling any other grief, but I think when it's those are the hard ones to overcome, particularly if there's any element of traumatic experience alongside of that. And so grief in itself, there are various stages that we go through. There's disbelief, there's anger, there's acceptance. There's 5 official stages. I'm not going to go into all of those because I actually don't think, not everybody goes through them all. They're not linear. They're just, it's how you, with your normal way of living, and whether you are able to express your emotions well, or whether you hold on to your pain and your feelings. We all experience grief differently. And so actually knowing what those 5 stages are doesn't really make any difference, because you're going to get through them, but we all survive them, hopefully. I think it's incredibly important to allow yourself time and space when grief occurs. And specifically if you are in adrenal fatigue already, or you feel that it's leading to adrenal fatigue, you've got to be kind to yourself. You've got to start to trying to keep this within the adrenal fatigue sort of sphere. You need to look after your adrenals like they're your own little babies, because we all have that choice to make. We all have a choice now. Do we continue to live, and do we continue to be, you know, a member of society who hopefully contributes? Or do we just jump off that proverbial bridge and end it all because of the loss of our loved one? And I think if you're ever feeling along those lines, and, you know, suicide is something that you are considering, you've got to, you know, 999, call 911. If that is the case, I think the most important thing to remember is that the pain, no matter how bad it might be, if you're watching this and you've newly experienced a horrible grief, it does, somehow life does continue, and somehow life continues to have meaning. It's working through that grieving process and allowing life to have that meaning. Or go and talk to a professional therapist, because I think also the other thing to remember is when we're dealing with somebody who has died, would they want you to live a life in so much pain and to carry so much sorrow? And the answer is absolutely no, they would not. And I mean, I know we've all got different spiritual beliefs. I've seen a ghost. I've literally, honestly and truly, it was incredible. And the way I know it was definitely a ghost and it wasn't just some really amazing dream is my mum and stepdad used to have this property that had some holiday cottages attached to it. And I remember when the old granary was reconverted, and mum was showing me around, and we went up to this top room, and I said to mum, I said, "God, it's a funny feeling up here." I do sense things. And anyway, didn't think any more of it, you know, went back years and was visiting and da-di-da-di-da. And there was one night and I just saw this woman and she was in modern day clothing. She wasn't even like she wasn't like a woo ghost like you'd imagine on the films. She was dressed, I think she got like a red or dark red turtleneck jumper on and blue trousers, could have been jeans, I don't know. And she literally walked over my daughter's bed, over my son's bed, over my bed, or through my bed and out through where my door was. The door didn't open, she just sort of walked off in that direction. And I remember thinking, oh my goodness, wow, I can't believe this is happening. And I almost wanted to run and get my mum and say, Mum, look. But of course I didn't want to, because I didn't want to miss this experience. And then I told my mum in the morning, and she said that's the strangest thing, because, you know, a few months ago we had this family and the man had said that they described a woman very similar to the one I described in that top floor of the granary that had been reconverted. I mean, it's just phenomenal. I mean, it's so exciting because it gives us so much I think it gives us so much hope and so much support. And, you know, I apologise if somebody's listening to this and you don't believe in life beyond death, because then this might not be sort of appropriate for you to listen to, because I'm not saying the things that might help you feel more supported. But I also have, there's a medium that I go to around here. She's very good. When my dad was a very individual type of person, and I didn't even go down to talk to him. I went for just like a tarot reading, really, to see what came up. And he came through. But there is absolutely no way she could have devised how to say what he would have said to me. And what he said was just like, it was so my dad, but it was almost, I hate to say it, almost disappointing, because it wasn't lovey-dovey. It's exactly what my dad would have said, in the way he would have said it. And it was just like, whew. So I think, I mean, for me, it supports me a lot. We've had a lot of deaths in our family, young ones. And for me, it's an incredible support to think that the spirits are either with us or they're near us. And I feel really strongly that when I die, my spirit will be so tightly linked to my children or my family, because I just really strongly believe that's the way it is. And when my dad was dying, another lady I saw, she said, oh, there's an elderly lady stood next to you, she's quite tall and slender, and I think it's your grandmother. And my grandmothers were both very different shapes and sizes. And she said, oh, she mentioned Dad, and she wasn't so obvious, because actually I don't think he knew then that he'd got cancer. And but she said she's here to help somebody move through. And that was years ago. And I think it might have been my dad's mum waiting for him. And I mean, I know I'm going down a rabbit hole, but I'm just saying, I'm sharing these stories with you because I think there is so much more beyond our physical realm here. Absolutely, passionately believe there is something more. I'm going to share one more story with you. I hope you don't mind. When I volunteer in hospice, there was this beautiful, beautiful man called Ivan, and he used to work in gardening, and he had the most beautiful hands. I used to massage his hands and feet because his body was too poorly, so I used to do hands and foot massage. And he'd lost his father and he'd lost his brother to heart disease when they were both in about their 40s. And Ivan, again, I think when he was late 40s, he'd had a heart attack. He literally died on the table. They couldn't resuscitate him, and he'd started to come out of his body. And he remembers seeing the nurse inject him with adrenaline, and he had this choice, and he was like floating above his body, and he said he spoke to God, or God spoke to him and said, you have a choice. You can either go to where your brother and your father are, and he could see his brother and father over there, or you can come back down into your body and you can share the message of hope with other people that there is life beyond our human existence. And he chose to go back into his body and share that experience with people. And so when I saw him in hospice, that was about another 30 odd years later, maybe 25 years later. He was early 70s, and he died, was it 3 Christmases ago? Oh, he's such a lovely man. He knew he wasn't going to be around for long, but he wanted to spread his story to help people in hospice not feel afraid that there is something beyond and bigger than what we have already. And so I think, depending on your beliefs, and I respect everybody's belief system because they're all different, and but if you're able to think of life beyond our physical plane, I think that's incredibly supportive for people facing a loss that just tears their world apart. And beyond that, if you don't have those spiritual beliefs, I think just getting out into nature again is one of the most important things that you can do for your adrenals, as well as for your mental health and your physical health too, because it gets you out. You get ultraviolet on your skin, helps you synthesize your vitamin D. It's just incredibly important for our immune system, and it gives you a sense of getting away from in here, because I know particularly in the early days around loss, there's that shock, there's the disbelief, there's the habits that you fall into, oh, it's time to get breakfast ready, but there's nobody to get breakfast ready for. Or, oh, it's time to go to school. Oh, I can't go to school. There's nobody to go to school for. Or, I should phone them, but they're not there to phone. It's these weird things that happen, because you're so used to doing it, and getting back into that life, into that new life, when that habit isn't there, or that, even if you've cared for somebody who was dying from a terminal illness, and you can see the suffering that they're going through, you can see the pain, you can probably see that in their eyes, maybe they are tired and they've had enough. But when that eventually happens, there's that then conflicting group of emotions of being relieved that they're not in that pain anymore, but you just didn't want them to go. You still weren't ready. You're never ready. It's never the time. Is still never the right time for them to go. And so taking deep breaths really helps as well. I can be an emotional wreck. But I think, it's really important also to explore your emotions. So, what is it you're feeling? Is it resentment? Is it anger? Is it frustration? Is it just painful sadness? Is it fear? What is it that you're feeling? Is it a combination of feelings that you're feeling? Because when loss is new, it's so much chaos. It's just nuts. It's just like toxic spaghetti in your head, and you go around one way, and then you think, oh, calm, oh no, and then you're up and down and round again, and there is no let up, and then you can't sleep, or you do sleep through exhaustion, then you wake up, and the first thought to greet you is that loss, that sense of sadness again. And there seems to be no let up. It's almost as though, you just sit up and then punches you down again. You just start to sit up and it punches you down again. And those punching moments do get fewer and far between. And life does start to become more normal, as much as normal exists. I think it's really important to give your system, or have faith in your system, to get you through that period, because it's supposed to hurt. It's supposed to, unfortunately, a loss is just plain raw sad. And it's not about forgetting and moving on from the death, I don't think. I think it's assimilating the loss inside of you, however that works for you, and learning to walk with that loss for the rest of your life. And you carry that memory for the rest of your life, and you help to keep that memory of that person alive for the rest of your life, through your stories, through your memories. Remember, our thoughts are all energy, just like radio waves are. They're all energy. You can't see them, but whenever you're thinking about that person, who knows that your thoughts are not connecting spiritually with that person, if you believe in spirit beyond our human form. And if you don't, maybe you're going to be proven wrong. Maybe I'm going to be proven wrong, but the way I believe gives me a lot of relief and a lot of comfort, and it works for me, so I'm sticking with that theory. It works really well. The other thing, so tying that back into your adrenals. So if you're already in adrenal fatigue, you are exhausted already. You're about as low as you can be. So you may actually experience grief, and you may even feel apathy because you've just not got the energy to almost acknowledge that it's happened. You may think that there's no way you could feel any lower, and then you just drop off that ledge and you just think, how on earth did that happen? How can I possibly be any lower than I was? The good thing is the body and the brain is incredibly adept at getting you better if you are prepared to help it. And the way you do that is lifestyle. So if you're in adrenal fatigue, you sleep. If you are in full-on fatigue, you need to sleep. And that means take days off work, and you might sleep 13 hours, 14 hours, 15 hours. You might stay in bed for a full 24-hour period. Take it easy the next day. Go to bed as soon as you're tired again. If you need to cat nap. If you're still sleep, until you get to the stage when you're sleeping, say 7 or 8 hours, and then you're waking up feeling, you'll know when it happens, you will feel that slight motivation, which means that your cortisol is starting to your adrenals are starting to create the cortisol that they need to create. When that morning happens and you wake up and you just think you've got that lightness, you're starting to build back up. So that's when you probably don't need to sleep quite so much. You need to be outside, you need to be in nature, cut out processed foods, cut out sugar, avoid alcohol. And I know that is hard, particularly if you're going through loss and grief as well, because we want to numb our emotions and we want to numb the pain. Just remember that if you're in adrenal fatigue, or you're near adrenal fatigue, you've got to take responsibility for healing you. And I know it's sometimes we almost become reckless when we're in serious grief, because life you're angry with everything and you just don't care, and that can transpire into anger at yourself as well. Maybe you're angry because you're still bloody here and they're not. And I think, again, acknowledge that anger. If that's how you feel, bloody go for it for a couple of days. But then you've got to then decide to draw that line and think, okay, this is life, and I'm living for them too now, and I need to heal, and I need to look after my adrenal glands like they're my own little babies. And so avoid alcohol, avoid oh, that's so funny, so weird. The medium who I saw a while back, when my dad came through, she just sent me a text message. I've not been in touch with her for ages. Woo, see, it's energy, thoughts. So bizarre. So yeah, you need to eat healthy, cut out sugars, cut out alcohol, cut out caffeine. In my last live that I did a few minutes ago, there is something called Teacino, which is like a herbal tea, Teecino, I think. You can get it from Amazon. It's completely caffeine free and it tastes like coffee. It's actually really, really nice. So if you love the flavour of coffee but you want something without the caffeine in it, go for Teacino. And you want to cut out sports drinks because they have just got so much other bad stuff in and caffeine, so you don't want those. You want lots of leafy greens. You want nuts and seeds. You just want a whole food diet. And omega-3 fatty acids are incredibly important. Now, you get the best form of omega-3 fatty acids from lean meat and fatty fish. If you're vegan, then chia seeds is the best plant source of omega-3s, but they're just short chain, they're not long chain, and our body doesn't convert short chain ever so well. I was about to say bone broth, but that's not much good if you're a vegan, but it's particularly good to help reinforce your immune system when you are in adrenal fatigue or getting near to that. Dates. I don't think I mentioned dates in this live. I'm trying to remember what I mentioned in the last one. They're high in boron, which is a trace mineral, which is incredibly good at supporting our adrenals. Ashwagandha. I mustn't forget ashwagandha. Google it. It's ASHWA ashwagandha. Yeah, GHANDA. That is an adaptogen herb, and it helps the body respond to stress. So if you've got low cortisol, which happens in adrenal fatigue, it helps to lift your cortisol up. If you've got high cortisol, which is like the precursor to adrenal fatigue, it helps to lower that. But it just helps the body adapt to stress, full stop. Also helps to boost your immune system, particularly when we're under stress, long-term stress. Our lymphocytes, one of our white blood cells, get really ram-raided badly, and it's the lymphocytes which keep our immune system functioning well and that also gobble up cancer cells. So ashwagandha is incredibly good at boosting your immune system, as well as just helping you cope with stress in general. What else can I say? Eat foods which are high in potassium and magnesium, but those are pretty much leafy vegetables. Raw chocolate, raw cacao is high in magnesium, which is great. By the way, if you think by eating a banana is going to be enough for your potassium levels, you need to eat about 10 bananas a day. We need 4,700 milligrams approximately of potassium every day. Most of us are deficient in potassium. We need around 300 milligrams of magnesium a day. Quite a few of us are deficient in magnesium too. A really good way to get magnesium into your body is just have an Epsom salt bath in the evening. Just languish in it for 20 or 30 minutes. That could be a really good space for you to just do a bit of self-care, do some deep breathing. So breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth, and your in-breath needs to be slightly shorter, or rather your out-breath should be slightly longer. It's got to be a slow process, this. So maybe in for 8, out for 12. In for 10, out for 15, that sort of thing. Stimulates the vagus nerve. We cannot physiologically be relaxed and agitated at the same time. And deep breathing makes you relaxed. So even if you're just doing it for a few moments, 3 times a day, 2 times a day, when you wake up at night and you wake up and it's that, you're faced with that grief again, deep breathe. It'll help you relax. And just remember that if their spirit is out there, they want to see you in bed, maybe talking to them, but not upset and at the end of your tether, because that spirit will still be there watching, loving you. I hope that helps. It's hard. I know it's hard. Is there anything else? I think also to create a framework. So we create habits because it helps our brain conserve energy. Our brains use an enormous amount of energy. And if you can just create a framework that works for you just while you get on your, back to normal functioning, that framework might say, I've got to sleep for a minimum of 10 hours. It might then say, and then I'm going to get up, I'm going to have a pint of water with either lemon juice or cider vinegar in it, just a little dash of cider vinegar or the juice of half a lemon. It stimulates your system, gets your metabolism going, also gives you some vital minerals and nutrients. Eat a breakfast. If you're into intermittent fasting, I would give it up while you're getting your adrenals sorted, personally. I know there are other people that say intermittent fasting isn't so bad when you've got adrenal fatigue. I think it's more important to keep your blood sugar levels steady. And I would start your morning off with, if you're not vegan, I would start with something like a vegetable omelette. Have a little bit of cheese maybe, a couple of eggs, some peppers, spinach, mushrooms, onions, coriander. Coriander is incredibly good for tryptophan, which helps us release more serotonin. In fact, I'll go over those foods in just a minute. But you want to start your day with healthy fats and lean protein. And then you want to be eating 3 meals a day and ideally 2 healthy snacks as well. So that you're keeping your blood sugar levels steady. When our blood sugar levels dip, particularly in adrenal fatigue, we release cortisol. and you don't want to be using up cortisol that you so badly need to be storing just until you get your adrenal glands healthy and back to normal again. So I mean, that's what I eat when I'm losing weight, when I want to lose weight too. I make sure I have 3 healthy meals a day and I have 2 healthy snacks. And when I eat more, I lose more weight because my blood sugars are stable. When our blood sugars are going up and down, we're releasing insulin, which makes us hang on to belly fat. You just set up this myriad of negative chemical reactions. It's a misnomer. Diets don't work. Restriction does not work. Your body needs food. It just needs the right food. So cut out processed food, avoid caffeine, avoid sugars, avoid refined starches like pasta, white rice, white flour, that sort of thing. Prepare your own food so that you're not in packaged food. Even if it says healthy on the packet, it's still full of shit most of the time. Excuse my language. So if you prepare it yourself at home, hey Sylvie, lovely to see you. You know that it's healthy. You know what's in it. I bake my own bread for that reason. I haven't bought a loaf of bread for years and years, over 20 years, because my bread has just flour in it, predominantly stone ground wholemeal or granary, and a little bit of yeast, tiny bit of Himalayan rock salt, and sesame seed oil. You do not need sugar and you don't need milk powder. Even though the bread maker recipes say you need it, you don't. You can just leave it out. And water, of course. You do need water. And then the serotonin food. So the foods that help to boost your mood: turkey, bananas, avocados, nuts and seeds, tofu, dark chocolate, anything above sort of 70% cocoa solids. What else? Eggs are good. Coriander. And I'm sure there's another one as well. Did I say bananas? I think I said bananas. But those things specifically, they're high in L-tryptophan, which helps us release serotonin, which makes us feel happier. So you want to be boosting your happy hormones, and have a framework that works for you. So after you've had your breakfast, maybe have another glass of water, maybe then go for a walk. Go for a gentle walk. If I have some people that they're getting over adrenal fatigue, or they're working through adrenal fatigue at the moment, and they find it really frustrating not to actually do any sort of like sweaty exercise. So they're just adding like 20 minutes of cardio 2 to 3 times a week. And because they get such a boost from that, and it makes them feel so much better. If you're one of those people, I say go for it and have to, but just don't overstress it. So maybe just 2 or 3 sessions, short sessions of either HIIT training or cardio. Because if that makes you feel better, go for it. And I think be really aware, track what makes you feel better, and track what foods might be making you feel either really lethargic again. Maybe that if you're might be eating, like yogurt or cheese, might be making you feel really lethargic afterwards. It might be because you have a slight dairy intolerance, in which case cut it out and just become a super sleuth of the foods that you're eating, so that you can then work out how that affects your body, because you want to be really fine-tuning it, because if you're in adrenal fatigue, you need to do some serious work to get your adrenals back to normal. And it is down to you to do it, unfortunately. There is no quick fix with something like that. And try and keep your thoughts positive. Another thing I suggest to people is to keep like a gratitude journal that you do at the end of the day before you go to bed. I know through grief, that's a hard one to actually even have the energy or the desire to do, because you're so stuck with the pain of the grief, and it's just like, why the heck do you feel grateful? What is there to be grateful for? But I promise you, if you can, even it could even be based around the memory of the person that you've lost. I'm grateful because, and always remember that if they're looking down at you, what would they want to see you doing? And that doesn't mean to say deny your emotions, not at all, but it means to continue to live your life as well, and to do the best. We don't know. A massive tile might fall off the roof tomorrow as you walk out of the front door, and that could be it. None of us are guaranteed any existence beyond this moment right now. None of us. None of us know when it's going to happen. We all assume it's going to happen at some vague time in the future, but none of us know. So I think also it's really important to just have a real grasp of your own not humanity, I can't think of the word I want to say now, your own mortality, I suppose. It's not a very upbeat word, but have to be appreciative of what we have right now, because you don't want to be wasting it. And I appreciate in the early days following a loss, there's that anger and the confusion and just raw pain. But remember that your body and your mind knows how to do this instinctive. I can't remember if I said it in this live or the live that I didn't save. I better remember to save this live, because otherwise you guys are going to be so bored. I have to do it again. But our bodies know what hormones to release. Our bodies know what to do. So when we are giving birth, we're not lining up our hormones and saying, right, better let that one off now, and better let that one off now. Our body does it naturally. Same as when we're the baby, we give off hormones to the mother, our mothers, to make us be born too. It's the same with getting through grief. It's the same with dealing with stressors. Our bodies know what we need to do, and it's about us getting out of our way and allowing ourselves to heal. And we wouldn't have adrenal fatigue if our lives weren't constantly filled with stress. And that, stress from every level: nutritional stress, environmental stress, stress from ratty bosses, stress from deadlines, stress from bank balances. God, there's so much stress. But we wouldn't have adrenal fatigue if our lives were led as we were supposed to lead them, in an evolutionary sense of the manner. The age of technology is amazing, but bloody hell, it's frazzled our bodies and our minds. So on that note, thank you for joining me. And Mia, I hope you get to watch this, but I'm going to try and remember to save it this time so I don't have to do this all over again. And just give yourself grace. Don't compare yourself or your journey to anyone. Talk to people around you so that they can help you and support you. You might think they know what you need, but there's no harm in telling them what you need to be supported. And most of all, be kind to yourself and allow yourself to heal. If you're in adrenal fatigue, you need to rest, and you need to feed yourself the right foods. You need to be thinking thoughts that are going to promote health and healing and not lead to further stress within your body and your soul. So hope this has been helpful. If you've got anything you'd like me to cover on either my Menopause Mondays or my Wellness Wednesdays, although I appreciate I've had 2 Wellness Thursdays, it's just the way it's worked at the moment, please let me know. Either send me a comment, leave me a comment, or send me a private message, and I'll make sure to add it to my list. So thank you very much, and I will catch you soon.